So when things go wrong with the Copelands, which seems to often happen because such is life, right? We look at each other and we say, are we going to be okay? And the response is always, I think we're going to be okay.
We're going to be okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Push Podcast. I'm Janelle Copeland.
You sound so beautiful and so wonderful, honey. Oh,
I'm trying so hard not to cough.
Oh, I know.
With every single word.
Well, welcome to the podcast, people. My wife is still not 1,000%. She will get there one day soon, right?
It doesn't feel like it. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I had COVID over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We went to the snow this weekend and I couldn't stop coughing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the elevation or if it's just a lingering COVID cough, but I'm really struggling here.
Yeah. But you know what? You're beautiful. And, you know, the people, you're still here, right? Yeah. Because you are tough. And kind of like what we're talking about today.
And I have deadlines.
You have resilience, you know, and so you're pushing through. So you are like practicing what we talk about. Push through, right?
Thank you, honey, for your support, your unwavering support.
There we go.
So listen, we're going to start off with a little story that's going to give context to why we think that everything always works out for a reason.
Are we going to be okay?
We're going to be okay.
Okay.
Why are you asking that?
just okay.
I mean, explain to the people though.
Well, so I think we could probably tie this in, but you know, we through different things we asked that question, and we got it from a comedy sketch that we watched, and you know, the comedian Gerard Carmichael constantly was saying
he was talking about global warming.
He was talking about the world, and he would constantly say, "Are we okay? Are we going to be okay?" He's
asking the audience. It's a very serious question.
And then he
goes,
Are we
going to be okay?
I think we're going to be okay.
So when things go wrong with the Copelands, which seems to often happen because such is life, right? We look at each other and we say, are we going to be okay? And the response is always, I think we're going to be okay.
We're going to be okay.
So whether we miss a flight, whether, you know, anything happens, we always kind of remind each other of that.
We're going to be okay.
We thought that would be a great perspective to kind of share with you today. But in addition, we just got back from a great weekend in the snow, and so many things didn't go right. And we're going to talk about that.
So do you have a what in the world?
Before we get into that, I do have a what in the world.
All right. What is your what in the world?
So my what in the world.
What in the world, people? Here we go.
My what in the world is the fact that it is 2023, and a lot of the songs that we really love are turning 30 years old.
Wow.
And I had dinner with my friends recently, Duran and Marcella. And I said, I just have to ask you guys, do you think that you've officially reached the age where you think that your music is the single best music that's ever been played? And they said, 100%, I'm stuck in the 90s and I'm sticking to it. It's the best music. And my question is doesn't every generation feel that?
I think so. I mean, so I think
make us old?
No,
because I don't feel old.
No, I don't feel old. I do embrace some new music, and then I let go of others. I decide not to.
Right.
You know,
you don't want to embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny because I like we both enjoy like 90s R&B.
And hip hop.
In hip hop, my favorite music though is probably late 90s, early 2000s. So because that's to me was when rap was at its peak.
Yeah, I agree. We have all these excuses as to why that music is superior. And then we could also say, well, our kids love our music. Well, because we're their parents and that's what we played on road trips, right? So the question is, do you think that your generation, like, I don't care if you're 50, if you're in your 40s, then you're with us. But if you're in your, like, do 20-year-olds think that this is the greatest music ever? Jordan said no. She thinks that our music is, but I think we've maybe brainwashed her. So here's what I want to play. It's a TikTok and it says, these songs are literally 30 years old this year.
Okay.
Let's see if you know them. And they're from 1993. Okay.
Here we go.
Dollar Dollar Bill, y'all.
Okay.
You know I love Tribe Called Quest.
Okay.
That's a great song. Whoop, whoop. Getting it on. Snoop Dogg. Let me ride.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
This is it.
Spread above it. Okay.
Majorly. Your girl keeps paging me. These are unbelievable songs.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, they are.
They're 30-year-olds old.
That's crazy.
Diggable Planet.
Right.
These are just, I could let this go for 5 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. So that's my what in the world. And that's the question that I have is like, do you think that your generation has the best music ever? Because I think we do, but I also think that every generation thinks that.
Here is the empirical evidence why it is the best music, because it was the first of its kind.
Right.
Right. So
there was no R&B before that.
Well, what you played mostly was hip hop.
Right.
Right. And so most of that was very new, never been heard before. And it had gotten to a place where kind of that ABC rhyme, hip hop, like we had moved to this now, like incorporating different types of music and samples. And then all of a sudden you had all of these prolific artists that are coming out in the 90s. And some of them are still making music now, right? That are doing really well. Like Nas has an album that dropped that is amazing, and people who are young love the music too. And so
do you think Tupac would still be making music?
It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, I think
haven't heard from Diggable Planets.
But the thing is like the music that we love is so new still when you compare it to R&B, rock, right? Like those things have been around for, many years. We're talking about like the beginning of hip hop was really in like the 80s, like late 70s. And so we are now seeing those artists age where our parents, they have seen different artists age and music continues. And so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think because it was the first of its kind, that's the best music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, that's your story. You're sticking to it.
That's what I'm sticking to.
You have a very interesting what in the world. And it's regarding
the
homeless people.
Yeah, people without a home.
Which
I don't know. What's the proper way you're supposed to say that now? Because you're not supposed to say homeless anymore.
You're
supposed to say, no, you're supposed to say people living without homes.
Displaced?
Right? I don't know. Well, because I don't know. Something
homeless
about homeless
is not the thing?
No, you can't say homeless anymore. I don't know.
But we talk about it on the news all the time. There's, X amount of thousands of homeless people.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's changed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Well, anyways.
There's people living without a home. I don't know.
Okay.
So I went to Panda Express, right, to get a nice little bowl. And
you're at a shopping mall.
I'm at a shopping mall, so I get a bowl, and it's vegetables and some chicken. And lady in front of me, she gets like this whole meal, and it's an older lady.
About how old?
Probably about 80, right? And so I didn't think any of it. People are in front of me all the time, right? So we get, I get my food. She gets her food. I get my food, and I'm walking about, and I see her walk towards me as I'm walking through eating my food. And she stops and she says, excuse me, can you do me a favor? And I was like, favor? I was like, sure. Like, what are you going to ask me? Right.
What do you think she was going to ask you?
I have no clue. Like,
but it was the same lady
It was the same lady.
The food.
Yeah. I have no idea. She could ask me, I just bought some furniture from the furniture store. Can you move it into my house? I have no clue what she's about to ask me. And so she says, I have this food and I want to give it to this homeless person. And I turn, and there's a homeless person sitting on one of the benches. And I'm like, okay.
But I need you to give it to him?
And she says, I need you to give it to him. I said, oh, you don't want to give it to him? She goes, no. The last time I tried to give food to someone, they threw the food at me. And I was like, oh my God.
This little old 80-year-old?
Yeah. So someone got in a food fight with this lady when she was trying to give food. And so now she said, and so she was really cautious. And she said, if he starts throwing food, just run. So she's giving me tips.
Okay.
I'm like, how to get, I said, I don't think he's going to throw food, but if he does, I will. She says, but be very careful.
Okay, so let me get this straight. She's 80 years old. She's still, after she had been assaulted by a homeless person.
She still wants to give people.
She still wants to do the right thing.
Yeah, and now me and her are kin of each other because I've experienced abuse from those who are without a home.
Many times.
Yeah, and I don't blame all of people who are homeless, but there's some individuals, they are mean. Right.
Okay.
So
she pre-warns you.
All the things I have gone through went through my head, right? And I said, I'm going to do this anyway.
Because she's a little old lady.
She's a little old lady.
Yep.
She asked for my help. I already agreed to it.
Okay.
Like that whole idea, that's a whole sidetrack when people say, can you do me a favor? Like,
okay,
tell me first. So then I grab the food and I walk over and I say, excuse me, sir, this woman here wants to give you food. I don't want it. And I was like, oh my God.
He screamed at you.
He literally was like furious. And he says, I don't want it. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So I turned around. I said,
he doesn't want it.
He doesn't want your food. I gave it back. She goes, no. She goes, oh, I'm going to find someone else. I said, well, be very careful.
Oh my gosh. So were you expecting him to go crazy?
No, he literally was sitting there docile, just like not moving.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I honestly didn't think he was going to acknowledge me. You know how some people are just like, don't even know. You would have thought that like.
But he snapped at you.
He snapped at me and he did not want that food. And, I'm thinking, this is Panda Express, bro. Right. This is good food. What are you talking about? When was your last meal? I mean, he was filthy, obviously. Like he was like, I'm like, this dude has not had a solid meal. But I don't know what's going on because I've had the same thing with people who've like people without a home has snapped at me. And so I didn't think it was uncharacteristic, but I was definitely surprised. And so that was my what in the world. My what in the world is like people who like when you try to give and they get mad at you, you just go, oh my God, what is going on? Like, here's what I found.
Oops, I don't know why she's talking.
When did this all start? I feel like people who without a home were always like asking for food. Now people are like, I don't need food.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
what's
going on
here? I don't know. Sorry, all this noise. I don't know, but you've had your fair share of run-ins.
Yeah, and I've tried to give.
But here's the thing:
it's not going to stop me from giving. Yeah, but
that's what I was going to say. I think
giving.
Because you have one negative run-in, I don't think you stop doing the right thing.
No, I'm going to persevere. I'm going to keep trying to give.
And I love that she did the same thing too. She was like, I know it's the right thing to do. I'm going to spend $10 on a meal, and I'm just randomly giving it out. A big dude to give it because I don't want to have it thrown at me.
And I was curious. I was like, did she just buy it because she saw him?
Probably.
Probably. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe some people are like, okay, today I'm gonna go give some food out, so I'm gonna go buy it first.
Good for her.
So,
I love her.
I wish her luck. I hope she didn't get in a food fight.
Oh my God. Okay, so recently we went on a snow trip with the Terrar family. Yeah. I'm gonna explain to you. My sister Richland married Mitchell Terrar, and these are his in-laws. We went on a trip with them because we like them. And
expanded family.
Yeah, expanded family. They're not our in-laws, but they're my sister's in-laws. We happen to share the same anniversary weekend. And so we met with them a few months ago. They said it was their 26-year anniversary. It was our 18-year anniversary. And they said, we should do something. Let's get a cabin. We'll go to the snow, go snowboarding. So we had that trip planned this weekend. And then my sister and Mitchell wound up coming, which there's so many things I want to kind of unpack, but we found out the gender of their baby, which we'll talk about in a second. They held on to that information for the whole weekend, which wasn't really fair. We're getting ready to head out. We flew to Northern California. They picked us up from the airport. We're getting ready to leave to go to the snow, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from their house. And the Airbnb literally cancels as we're walking out of the door.
Right.
And they said, the roads are really rough. We can't get propane there, which means you have no running water and there's no heat.
No hot water.
No hot water.
Right. And
no heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. My first response, thank you for canceling.
Right.
Because that would have sucked. It's 10 degrees outside.
100%.
I don't want to stay in an Airbnb with no running hot water or a heater.
Right.
Thank you. I don't think a lot of people respond like that.
No, I think some people are pissed.
Yeah.
And some people get upset and they think it's a huge inconvenience. Yeah. And, so
again, we always think everything works out. So we're like, all right, well, let's look at some options, right?
So immediately when I heard it, I was like, okay, go to Airbnb. So my mode.
First thing I hear, I say, thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was so thankful.
Right. Because you get there and they're like, hey, we have a problem.
Well, the problem was
after you're already settled in.
We were supposed to go much earlier, but we got caught up talking. Mm-hmm. And so we delayed our trip and we were like, oh, shoot, we got to get on the road. If we would have stuck to the schedule, then we would have been knocking on the door and they would have said, sorry, there's nowhere for you to go. There's not really great service, reception. So we would have been on the side of the road with bad service trying to find another place to stay. And that would have been really bad.
That would have been tough.
So I was like, thank God we were talking all morning. Thank God they canceled on us.
Right.
Like I just was thankful, right?
Right.
And they weren't complaining. They immediately did what you said. Like, let's immediately look for an alternative option.
Yeah. And my brain is switched to, Well, the Copelands, we have been there before.
Right.
Like we have had like when plans go awry, you immediately go on your phone, you go into
fix it.
Let's resolve this. Where
Yeah.
can we do? So I start pulling up Airbnbs and like, okay, I found this, I found this. We can, and so
guess what? Airbnb doesn't do same day bookings. So Airbnb's out after an hour of research.
Right.
And then Khalid winds up finding a hotel. He says it's not the best option, but everything else is booked. I'm like, as long as there's enough beds for everyone, we'll make it work.
Yeah,
right?
Make it happen.
So we head out and get to the snow. And I feel like just like that, it went from like, oh, it's nice and beautiful outside to, oh shit, like you need to put this in 4-wheel drive because there's snow everywhere. Right. So that was really cool.
Really quickly.
We get to this new hotel, we check in, and it was good. There was 3 stories, tons of beds, and then all of a sudden our heater stops working. Like it just doesn't work. It doesn't get warmer than 65 degrees, I think. And then all of a sudden the roof starts leaking and all the stuff starts happening. And we're like, that's okay. Mm-hmm. We're all together. So we call the front desk and they say, well, we're not able to move you, but we can bring you a bunch of portable heaters and we can bring you a bunch of blankets. All right, let's make it work.
Sounds good to me.
So we did. We put all these portable heaters in all the bedrooms that literally everybody wakes up the next morning, guys, and they're talking about how hot they were.
Right.
At one point, because I get up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, I got up in the middle of the night, took all my clothes off because I was sweating. And I said, thank God. Literally, I was like, thank God we're in this warm ass place and I am complaining. Like, I'm not about to complain about being hot and warm when I know that it is now 7 degrees outside. Right. And so I just woke up and I was super thankful to take off all my clothes and be sweaty.
Yeah. One morning, I was like, I'm turning these things down. I'm like, we normally don't. It was so funny. It's like maybe it was a humidity change, but we don't normally sleep in
80-degree weather.
And I'm telling you, it was like 80 degrees in that room. I was like, this is way too hot.
That's why I took all my clothes off.
I was like, let me turn this off.
The next morning, the roof is leaking. Everybody was hot sleeping the night before, but we didn't care. We had a great time. We were all together. We played Uno. There was a huge debate with all of us, and Eddie was wrong about Uno. You do this thing where people have 2 cards when they're playing Uno. Let's take a poll. Let's take a poll. 2 cards. I have 2 cards. You know that I have 2 cards. You're waiting for me to say Uno, but you're trying to beat me to it. And in my opinion, I'm the one that is going to put a card down and say Uno, but your rule is if you beat me to it, then I have to draw 2 cards. And I always thought that was really stupid and that you were punking me and ganging up on me, because the rule should be is it's my decision if I have 2 cards. If I'm going to discard, then you should wait until I put it on the pile. And then if I forget to say Uno, that's when you call me out. The way that Eddie plays is if I have 2 cards, right when I go to motion that I'm putting it down, he thinks if he beats me to say it, that I should draw 2 cards. And that caused a huge family argument because, sir, you were wrong. I took a poll on Instagram. I asked a bunch of people. It's not accurate. And if you read the rules of Uno, what it is you're supposed to discard, because what happens is you started calling Uno and they weren't ready to do Uno. Like they didn't have one of the 2 cards. They weren't able to play it. So we started penalizing you, saying now you have to draw 2 cards, and then you got upset. It was this whole thing.
I'm not arguing whether or not that's the rule or not. Okay. I'm arguing if you normalize the rule, which to your point is not the rule. Did? No, if everyone collectively starts to do that thing and everyone starts to behave in that way, then it is now
That's the way you have to stick to it.
No, it has been normalized. It is now like, from a standpoint of like the game itself, in that particular game, that is the rule now because everyone is.
But nobody agrees with it.
I know, but everyone started doing it.
Yeah, because you were being louder than everyone else, and so you kept making us draw cards. And so twice,
everyone was making you draw cards.
Twice you called Uno for someone else when they did indeed not have Uno
because they were hiding their cards.
And so then we made you draw cards. So then it got all twisted. And so just for clarification, so everybody else listening knows how to play Uno. When you discard the card, you have to put it down. And then if the person forgets to call Uno, you call them out. And if they forget, you have to draw 4 cards.
Okay.
It's 4, not 2.
So people were more outraged by
you
the normalization
screaming.
of this kind of tribal rule that was that was implemented
by
in this game. I didn't start it.
Yes, you did.
Okay, regardless. But
no
regardless.
One
had an issue with somebody trading cards with people.
I agree. Mitchell.
And that went like uncontested.
It was cheating.
Right?
No, it was contested.
No.
My brother-in-law's a cheater and he knows it.
He got away with it scot-free.
Yeah.
But everyone tried to gang up on me.
You're right. Mitchell,
Why?
That was wrong. So there is
Can
no
we
trading
just be honest?
or creating alliances.
So okay. Who thinks trading cards?
Back to the story. So
Jesus.
Uno was a sidebar. Back to the story. The next day we wake up and we're going to go snowboarding. Granted, we haven't been snowboarding in many years. So we went and bought all kinds of clothes because you need snowboarding clothes. We were planning on getting rentals. Remember we went, what was that? Paintballing a couple years ago, and they called us rentals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. We were about to be rentals.
Yeah.
So anyways, we go and there's hundreds of people on the road trying to get to the slopes and hundreds of people waiting in line for shuttles, and we're like, oh, it's almost 11:30. I think we're a little bit late. So we wind up having a huge issue. We get up to the rental place and they're like, wait, do you have a lift ticket? No. Do you have rentals? No. Do you have an appointment or a reservation? No. Okay, we're going to put you on a wait list. That's going to take an hour. If someone returns their rentals, then let us know. So meanwhile, Khalid and Mitchell are trying to find parking, and there's no parking for miles, you guys, because why? It's almost noon and all the parking spots are taken. They see people parking for miles in places they're not supposed to, and police are just giving $200 tickets left and right. We would have been okay with a $200 ticket. Like, just pay it, whatever, let's go skiing. But there wasn't even one single one of those illegal parking spaces. There was no illegal
parking spots available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No legal, no illegal.
Yeah.
So then they called us and said, hey, we can't, we're not going to be able to park anywhere.
Right.
We got to call this off. And I'm like, okay, well, they just gave us an hour-long waiting list for rentals. We thought you guys were going to come back. So we just paid $90 on some food.
Right.
In the meantime, so let us gobble our food down and then you can come get us and then we'll leave. Winds up taking like 30 minutes for them to get back up the hill. Long story short, we didn't go snowboarding.
Right.
And we were okay with that. Why? Because we got a late start. We didn't realize all that was entailed. So we just kind of missed out on that. Not something we're going to cry about. At one point, Jordan said, guys, are we going to be okay? We're going to be okay. Eat your food. We're good. Right?
Yeah.
So we kind of had to miss out on that. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Overall,
it was a great time. Every element of it didn't necessarily work out the way it was supposed to.
We were supposed to have dinner with 14 people. 8 of us showed up. That's okay.
Because other folks were stuck on the hill snowboarding.
It's going to take a couple minutes for us to redo. Now you don't get a view. That's okay.
Yeah. And I think that those are the things that, I mean, we've kind of talked about some elements of this based on our travel in the past. Mm-hmm. But I think that when you are traveling or when you're connecting with other folks, you've got to be in a mindset of like, going with the flow, trying to add value or add to the experience and not be a person that's complaining and withdrawing energy from the group, or the trip.
Whether your flight's delayed, which our flight got delayed, right? So it's just like all these little minor inconveniences. My question to you is like, this episode is about why things, like, have you learned in life that things always work out for the best, right? Like, we don't know what the original cabin looked like, but do you know how tragic it'd be if we went, checked in, loaded in all of our stuff, and then we had no hot water, no heat? Like, that would have been bad. Since it wasn't a hotel, they wouldn't have been able to just come over and give us 25 little mini heaters, right? So again, thank you. I don't know what could have happened on the slopes. It was Jordan's first time since she was like 6 years old. It was my first time in a long time. Yours, maybe we would have broke our necks. I don't know. Thank you.
Let me ask you this. When you think about what we went through and you think about like the thought process of the word resilience, right? How do you rank that characteristic in a person with all the other many characteristics. Like, would you rank that as like a top 2 or 3 or
100%?
Or 5? Oh, yeah.
Because I think that if you're trying to do anything big in life, there's going to be setbacks. If you're trying to buy a house, you put in an offer, there's a good chance there's to be someone outbids you and your offer didn't make it. So are you going to cry and be like, oh my God, we missed out on our dream house? We know so many people that have done that, especially when it comes to like businesses. You know, I found the perfect location. I put in an offer. They decided to go with someone else. I'm so upset. That was my dream location. Yeah, well, that's disappointing, but are you going to not open a business now because that's the only place on the planet that you can make a business work? That's kind of ridiculous if you think about it.
Yeah.
So I think life has shown me that resilience must be ranked really high if you plan on doing hard things.
I think so too. And and debatable, but I would say probably besides being kind, I think being resilient is probably one of the top. I would say interchangeable with being kind. And the reason why I say that is because you know, resilience like is the ability, and I'll read the definition, is the ability to be flexible, plasticity, elasticity, strength, like durable, the ability to last, strength, sturdiness, toughness, rigidity, and so like all those things are, that's actually rigidity is an antonym, but all those things are so important because you can be a kind person, but be breaking at every single turn, about every obstacle that comes your way.
And then you could be victimizing yourself. Though. Like, I'm so kind. Why does all this bad stuff happen to me?
Right. And then you can be a kind person that in a situation that we had over this weekend, not everything was perfect. Not that everything, none of the things I think were planned worked out to exactly how they were planned. But if you don't have resilience, then you are pulling energy. You could be this kind, sweet person pulling energy and affecting the entire group and ruining others' time. But I mean, on a grander scale, like I don't think in this world that we live in now, with everything being so polarizing, everything being so, out there and like if you don't have resilience, I think that it's going to put you in a position where you may find yourself paralyzed, not being able to move, not being able to progress. And I think that it's a super important thing. So
let me ask you this, because if resilience is like the number one strength, by the way, that's like reason number one why things will always work out, but they work out easily, or easier, I should say, as you build your resilience, right? Your level of resilience. But my question is, do you think that more times than not, things don't work out as planned?
Oh, yeah.
Because I 100% agree.
Yeah. And this is not even negative. This is like every plan you come up with is created in isolation. We plan as if the situation will be perfect. Right? You plan, hey, we're going to go to dinner at this time. We say, hey, we're going to go to dinner at 5 o'clock. You
I didn't know you were going to get a flat tire.
Right. Yeah. All these things are created in a vacuum. And what happens is now we put those plans out and we try to activate them in the real world. And the real world says, well, you're competing with other people's plans. Yeah. And then you're also competing with just the sheer chaos of life. Yeah. Right. And unexpected things. And so I think that sometimes, some people could be so particular that they feel like when they create a plan that it needs to look and resemble exactly what was in their head every step of the way, or the plan is no good, or it's a sign that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, or they just stop, right? Because they said, they break down, they don't have the resilience.
Well, I think strongly that most things don't go as planned. Right. And if you can set yourself up to understand that that's how life works, then I think you are naturally working on increasing your resilience levels. And I'll give you an example. Just this week, someone was telling me, like, I planned this beautiful dinner party for my friends and, I made all this food, and then they get there and they didn't tell me they were gluten-free vegetarians. Okay, well, that leads me into the next point, which is around the power of the growth mindset, right? I think that all of the setbacks are always there to teach you something. Yeah. If that happened to me and I prepared this beautiful meal and it didn't dawn on me to ask if someone had eating restrictions, you better believe I learned that for next time. Yeah. Like the next time I go eat with someone or make reservations, let alone make a whole meal, I'm going to be smarter next time to say, hey, by the way, do you have any eating restrictions?
And I think sometimes, so if let me just play devil's advocate, right? So some people will say, well, I don't want to learn a lesson in that situation.
Well,
like
that's too bad.
I'm just cooking a
Yeah.
dinner for people, and you're telling me to pull out this lesson. But you know what? I'm disappointed now because we've been waiting weeks to have this dinner party, and we have kids and all these different things.
The
and
2023 Janelle would say, it's okay that you're disappointed. I see you, I hear you, and you can be disappointed.
Right.
But also at some point you have to arrive at your ability to move past it.
Yeah.
So you can be upset. You could even cry about it if you feel like it. Do whatever you want. But at some point we have to move past it. And I find that it's really beneficial if you can say there's some sort of lesson that will help me not go through this same level of pain in the future. What is that? Well, next time I could just freaking ask, right?
Yeah.
So I know that people get upset. Like you lose, obviously, if I like lost a husband or a child and someone says, there's a lesson in here somewhere. God wants you to learn a lesson. Bitch, shut up. Like I just lost a loved one. Nobody wants to hear that, right? But I do think that eventually as the scars form, there probably will be some sort of lesson. Like, did I not look into your eyes deeply enough? Did we, we took our time for granted. You hear so many people who go through a loss, when they go through their grieving process, they're able to give really good advice to people when they see that you still have your loved ones.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there's always a lesson there, whether you want to learn it or not, that's on you, but that's the point, right?
And I think that's the key to most of the idea around resilience is like what you make of the problem.
Right.
And I think that for just to kind of go back to that like dinner party example you gave, right? And also like with everything that we went through this weekend with all the different plans, like I read this quote that says, "Don't hold on to the dynamite after it's lit."
Okay.
And
duh.
Yeah. But so here's the thing. The problem happened, right? People get to your house and all of a sudden, like everything you planned does not work out because they're gluten-free, whatever the case may be. Holding on to the dynamite is that pity party.
Right.
It's that being upset, being emotional about that situation and not being able to switch into solutions, right? And so I think that what we learned through all of our travel things and just in life is that the quicker you can get from this is disappointing to how do I fix this is so important. And the quicker you move to that acceptance, and I think that you can move into action. And that's, I think, what I see a lot of people, the problem happens and they hold on to it like a stick of dynamite until like they explode with the dynamite, right? Instead of saying, well, that's a problem, let me get rid of that and let me move to something different. And I think that even the small things like the dinner party, if you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. That's okay.
Get your shit. We're going to eat somewhere else.
Exactly. One of the things is flexibility. Can you be flexible in the moment? Can you just say, I know I had this plan, but you know what? I got an idea. And I think that is super important.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I forgot what I was going to say next, so we'll just move on to topic number 3. It was something really good and profound.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. I mean,
you just need to have a little bit of resilience as you get through that.
The only thing I can say on top of that is I think we have been through enough challenges in life to know that there's always a workaround. And there's always some sort of way that you can solve for an alternative, right? Like when we couldn't get on the flight to go to Italy, but our kids could. Okay, we need passports like expedited. How can we make this work? Well, the only way you can make this work is if you're willing to go to another state, which was Seattle, to sit there and renew your passport.
Right.
Okay. Are we willing to do that? Or are we going to say, F it? It's just like, this is just something that's made me so angry that I can't get past this. Yeah, we're willing to do that.
Yeah. And it's almost like your lack of resilience could put you in a situation where you're deepening the problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we would have gotten to our own heads and just kind of like been so upset and enthralled by that situation and then canceled everything and just went home, like we would have missed out on some really great times with our family, even though it was cut short. So we knew it was going to work out. It didn't work out exactly how we planned, but we didn't sacrifice what is left of it, right? And so since time is such a unrefillable thing, like we can't get more of it. Like the goal is to say, like, how do I outpace this problem? How do I get ahead of it? How do I get to a place of solutions so that I can enjoy what's ever left of it?
And I'll say, like, this episode was kind of sparked because remember, my brother-in-law Mitchell and his father Khalid, they were the ones that dropped us off, told us get the rentals, get the ski lift tickets, and then we'll go park, right? So they called us and said, yeah, no parking. We looked at all the options. We're going to call this off. We're going to come get you. Mitchell said, yeah, I don't know, Dad. Like the Copelands, they go through hell and high water to make things happen. So I think we kind of gave in too quick, right? And we laughed about that. Why? Because we're not here just with ourselves, right? So if we came all the way to the snow and this was like all we wanted to do, we probably would have found a workaround. Yeah. But we were with family that we also wanted to hang out with. So it wasn't that big of a deal for us to say, well, we'll snowboard next time. It didn't work out, but what can we do that's fun? So we go back to the hotel and we start roaming around. I got to tell you, I had more fun playing in the snow with like our family than I've ever had in the snow in my life. And then like that night, Jordan, I call for her. I'm like, come, we were obsessed with the icicles hanging from the roof. So I broke a bunch of icicles off and then we used those pieces to like throw at, it was like vandalizing the property, but it wasn't. We were just knocking down the icicles. We were laughing so hard, I almost pissed my pants. And it was just such a fun time in the snow. So we didn't need to snowboard to have fun with family. Yeah. And so we just kind of released it. But that leads me to point number 3 of this podcast. And that is having faith that everything always works out for a reason, right? Like we couldn't go snowboarding. We couldn't stay at the Airbnb, but knowing that there's always some faith, I think, in knowing that some higher power had their hand in it and saved us from something potentially like hazardous or even worse, right? And this brings me back to, we had a friend, I think his name was Mike Hash, that used to work for an airline, right? So he worked for an airline at a ticketing counter. And he was like 7'2".
Yeah, he's really tall.
And so he'd have to be the one to on the intercom say, we're really sorry, but the flight was, canceled due to weather, whatever. And he said people would come up to the flight attendant desk and go crazy and be like, I need to get on this flight right now, blah, 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 blah. And he said he would just look at people like they were crazy and say, ma'am, God said not right now. And I thought it was like a life-changing thing to me because like you're literally yelling at me about getting on a flight that we just canceled for the weather. Yeah. Like what, or the plane broke,
or like God said no.
And I have said that to 100 people since hearing that from Mike. One time I was sitting on a flight ready to like take off literally on the runway. And 2 hours later, this lady next to me is complaining. She's like, I have somewhere to go, this and that. We're having maintenance issues. So I look at her, I tell her the story of my cash. And I said, so would you feel better because you have this really important thing to do where we're going? Would you feel better if they just said, we know that there's a mechanical maintenance issue, but this lady really has to get to where she's trying to go. So we're going to fly the broken plane. Would you be better with that? And she goes, well, since you put it that way, I go, no, but it is what it is. Like that is actually the way. And she goes, how do you look at things so positively? I go, because lady, the plane is broke. Like literally, I don't know this woman. I said, the plane is literally broken. Like I'm okay sitting here. Yeah. But you're not. Like you have to ask yourself why. And I think I changed her life. Like, because God said not right now. And she was like, well, when you say it like that, it makes me out to be the bad person. I said, well, I don't think you're bad, but I think you need to work on your patience, your level of, compassion, like your ability to just kind of go with things. Like God said not right now, I'm chilling. Yeah. And I literally fell asleep and an hour later they fixed the plane and we took off. And so, it was 3 hours delayed, but God said not right now.
Yeah, and I think that openness is so important. So if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I have some issues with patience. I have some issues with maybe you complain. Maybe you've gotten to a space of being pessimistic about life.
Maybe you're at a position where everything happens for you. Right. Like if you've got a little bit of money and you've got yes people around you and they're like, yeah, we'll make it happen. Don't tell her that this messed up. Don't tell her that this went wrong. maybe you're in a position where you need a little like couple of setbacks to humble yourself a bit. And I think that the opposite would be the case. Most of our listeners are like, I'm just trying to catch a break. Everything goes wrong in everything that I'm trying to do. And I will just tell you, we haven't always had this mindset, right? This has been all these books have taught us these lessons that we're sharing with you now for us to be in our 40s, mid 40s, to be able to say, yeah, we're just going to find a way to make it work. Yeah. And we'll make the most of these situations.
Yeah. Right? And I want to define a line because I think that I learned this from you. And I think that this is important because I've my entire life we talked about this. I'm very optimistic. So I believe things are going to work out. But sometimes you can get into a place of settling, right? Because you're like, well, this didn't work out. So you just kind of settle in, not getting the most out of things, right? And so we're definitely not saying, hey, you can just go with everything that
you learn how to settle because of me.
No. I'm getting to my point.
Oh, okay. I want you to clarify.
So you can get to a place where you just kind of settle on things, and we're not saying that right now. One of the things I think you're really good at is you're really good at saying, okay, here's the level standard I want, and I'm not going to settle for it. So I'm going to keep fighting for a higher standard. I'm going to fight for the thing I actually truly wanted. And I think that that's super important that you do that. But then you have to know when that fight is now futile, or the difference between fighting for a result or an outcome or simply complaining about not getting your way. Right. And so I think that the thing we have in common is like a no quit attitude. Right. So I don't quit. You don't quit.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we approach things of saying, okay, we're going to find a way through this, and we're not going to sit back and just settle. It's a difference between settling is different than acceptance. Like acceptance is like, I know this is the reality, right? Now I need to find a way to get to a better reality that I want or create. Settling is like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to sit here. And then I think what a lot of people do is they settle and then they complain about what they've been given after they've settled, instead of accepting it and moving to a place of trying to create a new reality for themselves. So when we're talking about resilience, we're talking about there has to be a fight, right? But the lady sitting in an airplane focusing on what she cannot control is not fight. Right. That's just complaining. That's a temper tantrum. Right. That is outwardly being, and in a lot of cases, immature in your emotional intelligence, because saying what you're saying is not going to change the reality.
And let me be clear, when we were on the flight to Italy during the summer this past year, everything was going wrong with the airlines, and we missed out on 4 days of being with our kids. That sucks. But guess what? On the plane we finally got on, there was a couple who literally, while we were in the air, their wedding was happening in Italy. And so she's holding her wedding dress like it's on flight. And, they're crying in their seats because they have paid for this wedding months ago. And their flight, for whatever reason, to go from, if they were coming from, I don't know if they were coming from Seattle or Holland or what, but their flights kept getting canceled. And it was all out of their control.
Right.
And so they missed their wedding. Like all these guests, 100 guests are in Italy. They can't get their money back. They can't postpone it. Like they can't do anything. They're crying because their wedding is happening while they're in the air on their way to Italy. There's nothing you can do about that.
No.
It sucks. That is so sucky. And I think you deserve to cry for the whole entire flight. You do.
Right.
And I want to hug you. And you want me to throw rice at you right now? Whatever you need. It sucks and it's not okay. But at some point you got to say, fuck, we got to laugh at this.
At some point you got to devise a plan of how you want to move forward. If we were in that situation, I think we would cry for half the flight. And then half the flight, we would say, okay, so what do we do?
Yeah. Right? I might go into the bathroom, like once we land in Italy, I might go into the bathroom jet lagged and just put on my dress for fun.
Yeah.
Just so that way, the moment I walk onto the property where my wedding was supposed to just happen, like maybe I make everybody laugh.
Yeah.
And my hair's in a ponytail. Like I look crazy, but hey, I spent a lot of money on this dress and I'm going to wear it every moment of this vacation. I might be at the pool in the dress.
Right.
I might just do something ridiculous like that just to make myself feel better about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's what I'm talking about. It's like you're planning on how you're going to make yourself feel better,
right,
happy, or to a place of like contentment, right? And so that I think what people miss, like they plan to be miserable because of the circumstances instead of devising a plan that will give them some type of joy.
Yeah.
And I think that to me that's important because as we were sitting there eating our food at the ski resort, knowing that we were not going to go skiing, immediately you say, well, this is good because I wanted to spend some time with my sister.
Yeah.
Like you immediately move to a place of, okay, well, if this is my reality, then what is going to be the joy in the reality?
Yeah.
Well, now I get to spend time with my sister instead of 5 hours on
and my daughter said, Mom, can we make snow angels? And I was like, yeah, we made the biggest snow angels and had the best time. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I face planted
Tell
myself. I face planted myself in the snow. I did not know snow is sharp.
Yeah.
So my face is all cut up. But you know what? It was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed myself. I laughed. Everyone else laughed at me.
Yeah.
Right? Or with me.
Yep.
I don't know. One of the two.
So,
but I think that to me is the moral of all this. Like the part of resilience that I think that people really need to hang on to is how do you plan for the next, right? Whether you plan to fight and like figure things out to get to a better place, you're open in a sense of saying that it's not going to look like how I planned, but I can make it happen and get the outcome I'm looking for. Or do you plan to be miserable and sit in it and let it sadden you to the point where it devastates everything, but also it deepens the problem that you're already in and makes it worse?
Yeah. Like we could have at one point, when Clete was looking for a place for us to stay, he goes, even the hotels are booked. And I was like, well, good, because we're going on a family vacation. We don't want to get 4 rooms and everyone's separate. That wouldn't be fun. We should just stay here at your house then, if that's the case, right? So, it always works out. So kind of like, just to go back, the 4, because I just made 4, the episode says 3 things, but reason number 1, why things always work out is resilience. You'll figure out how to bounce back from the setback if you allow yourself the ability to build up your resilience. Number 2, the power of a growth mindset. Take the challenge and figure out how to learn from it. Right. And I will say that after going through this, we weren't able to snowboard. We know next time, get up early. Make reservations,
100%.
Buy your lift ticket ahead of time, reserve your rentals. Like we know how to be better at this next time. Right. And number 3, the idea of knowing that everything happens for a reason. So having faith in the things that you cannot control. Number 4, I add humor and figure out a way to make yourself feel better about the situation quickly.
Yeah, we get to humor real quick. If I had
$1 for every single time someone said, when we're telling them a story of something went wrong, oh, I'd lose my shit.
Yep.
The first thing I think to myself when people say that to me is, that's not a very good strategy. Like it's the only thing I think about. Like in my mind, I'm like, that's not a very good strategy. Like you losing your shit in the time that it's taken you to lose your shit. I've already come up with a solution. Right. And I'm already on my way to the next thing. Yeah. Like, don't lose your shit. People that listen to the Push podcast, they don't lose their shit.
What's so funny is that adults say that, and then there's the same people that they're upset with their children when their children throw a tantrum because their children are doing exactly what they said.
Right.
They're losing their shit because they didn't get their way.
Yep.
And as an adult, you got to grow out of that. Yep. Like it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be, disappointed. It's okay. All those emotions are okay. Yep. But how I treat the next person, how I treat this problem is all that matters now. Right. And so,
because people are watching.
Yeah, 100%.
And I do think it's important that we say you may not be perfect at any of these, which we are not either. But I think it's important to know what the steps are so that when things go in the way that you weren't expecting, you have some tactics to say, okay, what was it that I need to get better at? What should I tap into? I'm going to try on a different perspective because losing my shit in the past hasn't gotten me very far. And so this episode is just to get you to think about a different perspective.
100%.
And so that you have a strategy for how to overcome things when they are unfavorable or don't go your way. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Lastly, before we go, congratulations to my sister and brother-in-law. They are having a girl.
Talk about resilience.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law, they got the results back from the gender reveal on Friday. We spent the whole weekend with no one knowing except for my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And then they did a gender reveal privately, just the husband and wife, my sister and her husband. And then they sent the video to everyone.
Yeah.
And it was so great because all weekend long, Mitchell Terrar thought he was having a son. He brainwashed me into thinking he was having a son because I wanted a girl.
Yeah.
But I was like, he's so convicted that I think I'm going to have to vote for a boy.
There's not many things that I'm petty around, but because I have 3 daughters, I'm really petty about that. Oh yeah, I wish it to everyone. If anyone's expecting right now and you're a man listening to this, I hope you have a girl. I hope you have many girls.
Yeah. So congratulations on your baby girl. And we love you guys. And thanks for a great weekend. We had so much fun in the snow. And maybe before the season's over, we'll be able to snowboard. And that's it. Push through, you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.